Good evening, and welcome back to Wisdom by the Fireside. Tonight's story is one of silent tears behind smiling selfies, of glittering screens masking the cries of a child. What happens when a childhood is sold frame by frame, packaged, filtered, and posted for the world's praise, while the soul behind the screen quietly withers away? This is the story of a girl who was once loved by millions, but never truly known by anyone. Her name was Lila. Born in Austin, Texas, in the summer of 2010, she came into the world with wide, curious eyes and a smile that could melt glaciers. Even as a baby, strangers in the grocery store would pause their carts and marvel. "Oh, she's a heartbreaker already," they'd say. And that's all her parents needed to hear. Lila's mom, Tina, was once a pageant queen turned dental hygienist. Her father, Mark, ran a small web development business from home. They were a regular couple, young, ambitious, and burdened by bills. When Mark's business began to sputter in 2012, Tina found another outlet: Instagram. She started by posting simple snapshots: Lila napping in bunny onesies, Lila drooling on watermelon slices. Hashtags followed: cute kid, your baby angel, just my little princess. And then the algorithm bit. By 2013, At Life with Lila had over 80,000 followers. Sponsorships trickled in. Tina was gifted bows, blankets, and baby bath bombs to feature. Within a year, they had to open a P.O. box. At 4, Lila was enrolled in influencer etiquette classes for child creators. She learned to smile for strangers, wave for unboxing videos, and say catchphrases like, "Stay sweet and silly." She didn't know what it meant. But when she said it, her mom lit up, so she kept saying it. By 5, Lila had a team: a photographer, a stylist, a manager. By 6, she had over 1.5 million followers across platforms. By 7, she was flown to Los Angeles for a Netflix kids panel. But something began to ache in her. Something no one noticed. It was small at first. She started pausing in the middle of filming, whispering, "Can I just be done now?" But Tina would cup her chin, adjust her bangs, and whisper back, "Just 2 more minutes, baby. Then I scream, 'Promise.'" The minutes always became hours. By the time she was 8, Lila's every moment was monetized. She never had a day without a camera pointed at her face. There were no sleepovers, too risky. No friends at school. Her parents had pulled her out for homeschooling to manage her career. Everything was content. When she scraped her knee on the driveway, Tina posted it as, "Life isn't always filtered. Our brave girl after a tumble." When she cried because her fish died, Mark filmed it in portrait mode and uploaded it with a sad piano soundtrack. It got 2.3 million views in 48 hours. "Don't you feel better when you see all the sweet comments?" Tina asked. Lila nodded, but she wasn't sure why. Because all she really wanted was a hug without a phone in the way. Lila turned 9 in a hotel suite in Orlando, just 10 minutes from Disney World. There were no friends, no games, no real cake, just a vegan 1-tier dessert sent by a brand partnership with a blue and gold plastic logo stuck in the frosting. They filmed the video 3 times because Mark didn't like the lighting on her surprise face. Lila didn't cry. She didn't ask where her old classmates were. She just smiled and whispered, "Stay sweet and silly," like she was supposed to. The party live stream got 4.2 million views. The caption read, "Princess Lila turns 9. Thank you to all her fans for the love." And as the sun dipped outside the window, Lila stared through the glass at the street below, where a little girl her age was jumping rope with 2 friends, laughing until she tripped and fell onto the grass. And suddenly, Lila wanted to fall too. She didn't know why, but it looked real. Tina came into the room with a box. "Let's do the mail opening," she chirped, placing it on the table. "Over 600 fan gifts. We'll film your reactions." Lila blinked. "Can I open them without filming?" Tina paused. Just a second, but it was enough. She set her hands on her hips. "Honey, this is your job now. People love you. You don't want to disappoint them, do you?" Lila nodded, even though she didn't understand what disappointing strangers had to do with hugging a stuffed unicorn. By 11, Lila could barely make eye contact with anyone. Her eyes instinctively darted to lights. Ring lights, phone lights, softboxes. Even in restaurants she'd ask, "Are we filming this?" If Tina said no, Lila wouldn't touch her food. She thought if it wasn't on camera, it wasn't really happening. Mark would occasionally say things like, "Let her rest today," but his voice lacked the conviction to match Tina's obsession with analytics. "She's trending in Indonesia," Tina once said triumphantly, as if that meant Lila was thriving. Lila started journaling, privately, in the Notes app on her iPad. One entry read, "I wish I had a friend to whisper with at night and play pretend, and not have to smile when I don't want to." She didn't show it to anyone, but sometimes she'd read it back to herself in the dark, mouthing the words like a prayer. By 13, the brand shifted. She was too old for adorable, not old enough for relatable teen. So Tina tried pivoting to a raw and honest look, posting makeup-free photos of Lila waking up, crying after bad dreams, feeling real. "Be vulnerable," she'd say. "Tell them what you're going through. Be inspirational." But Lila had nothing to say, because when you've never had privacy, you don't know what parts of you are even yours. At 14, a TikTok went viral from a stranger's account showing a behind-the-scenes moment where Lila, in between takes, muttered under her breath, "I hate this. I hate all of it." The clip had millions of views within a day. "Poor girl," some said. "She's being used," others posted. But Tina just saw opportunity. She made a response video. "Parenting an influencer isn't easy. We're doing our best. Lila's just having a hard week." She pinned a PayPal link in the caption. "Support Lila's mental health fund." By 15, Lila began refusing to smile. On camera, her eyes were dim, her voice mechanical, Sponsors pulled out one by one. Tina started arguing with Mark. Loud, bitter fights echoing through the house. "She's ruining everything," Tina screamed one night. Mark replied softly, "She's not a business. She's our daughter." But by then, it was too late to take it all back. The day Lila turned 18, there were no balloons, no brand deals, no birthday reel, just a quiet knock on her bedroom door. Mark stepped in, holding a card. "Your mum left early," he said, not meeting her eyes. "She had a meeting with one of the old sponsors, I think." Lila sat cross-legged on her unmade bed, packing a small grey duffel. "I'm leaving today," she said softly. Mark nodded. "I know." He placed the card on her nightstand and stood awkwardly for a moment, then said, "I'm proud of you." That hit her harder than she expected. No cameras, no filters, just words. She didn't hug him, but her eyes watered. That was enough. She didn't tell Tina goodbye. She didn't need to. Instead, she left a note on the kitchen counter beside a cold mug of coffee. "You made the world love me, but I wish you had taught me how to love myself." And she walked out the door. No ring light, no exit shot, just sunlight on pavement and the sound of her own breath. College was supposed to be her rebirth. She had enrolled at Ohio State University, majoring in digital sociology, a quiet rebellion against the industry that raised and ruined her. But the world outside the screen was harsh in different ways. Her roommate Madison was a political science major with a laugh that could echo down dorm hallways. She tried to include Lila in everything: cafeteria lunches, midnight target runs, study groups, but Lila kept slipping away like a ghost wandering her own afterlife. In lectures, she'd sit in the back, hoodie up, eyes low. In dining halls, she'd eat in silence, ignoring the occasional whispers. "Is that the girl from TikTok? I think my cousin followed her when we were like 12. She tried not to flinch. One day, Madison cornered her in the laundry room. "You hate people, don't you?" she joked gently. Lila looked up. "Number, I just don't know how to be around them." Madison softened. "You want to come with me to a campus poetry night? You don't have to read anything. Just listen." Lila nodded. She didn't know why she said yes. Maybe because Madison didn't ask about followers or filters. Maybe because she just looked at her like a person. That night, in a dim-lit cafe on North High Street, something shifted. A student read a poem about grief and growing up in silence. Another read about reclaiming identity after trauma. And when Lila looked around, no one had a phone out. No one was filming. It felt illegal, and yet so pure. Then a boy stepped on stage. His name was Jace. His poem was called Unposted. He spoke about living for likes and losing real life. About how his sister stopped eating after a photo went viral calling her the chubby one, about how perfection online was poison in disguise. Lila stopped breathing halfway through. When he finished, he glanced at the audience, and for a flicker of a second, his eyes met hers. That night, Lila wrote her first poem. She didn't show anyone, but she wrote it all. I was loved by the world, but not by my world. My smile paid rent, while my tears earned likes. Childhood, monetized. Adolescence, collateral. I am not your content. I am not your cure. I am the girl behind the screen, finally logging out. She cried when she finished, not out of sadness, but release. For the first time in her life, Lila didn't post her writing. She kept it locked in a folder, labeled "Not for You." But something new had cracked open inside her. For weeks, she returned to the cafe with Madison. She listened. She wrote. She even laughed. Quietly, cautiously, like someone relearning the sound of their own joy. Then one night, Jace asked her, "Would you ever read?" Lila blinked. "Read what?" He smiled. "Whatever it is you keep scribbling in your journal every time someone breathes a metaphor." She shook her head, but a grin betrayed her. "Maybe." That weekend, she emailed her first poem to the Poetry Night organizer. The following Thursday, she stood under dim stage lights, heart hammering in her chest. The microphone squealed softly as she adjusted it. Madison gave her a thumbs up from the corner, and Lila began to read. It was raw, uneven. Her voice cracked in the middle. But when she finished, there was silence. The kind of silence that tastes like reverence. Then came the applause. Tears blurred her vision. Someone recorded her reading and uploaded it to YouTube, without her knowing. The title read, "Former Child Influencer Breaks Her Silence in Powerful Poem." Within 3 days, it had over 900,000 views. By the end of the week, 3 million. People from her past resurfaced old followers, fan pages, influencer moms, journalists. One tweet read, "We raised her, and we failed her." Another, "If this doesn't make you rethink kid influencers, I don't know what will." But with the spotlight came chaos. Her phone rang constantly. Mark texted, "I saw the video. I'm so sorry." Tina emailed, "This isn't fair. You're making me look like a monster. You know I loved you." And suddenly, the girl who had worked so hard to disappear was once again trending. A podcast reached out, then a Netflix documentary producer. Even a major publishing house requested a meeting. And for the first time, Lila had to ask herself, do I tell the full truth or disappear again? She went silent for 3 days, skipped classes, turned off her phone. On the 4th day, she walked into Professor Jacobs' office, a woman known for her fierce work in media ethics. "I don't want to be famous," Lila whispered. Professor Jacobs studied her. You don't have to be, but your voice, your truth, might save someone else from becoming what you had to survive. That night, Lila wrote a second poem. She called it The Viral Lie. They clapped when I cried and cheered when I broke. They called it relatable, but it was just cruel. They told me I was lucky, but luck doesn't suffocate. I was a product, but I am not for sale. When she read it aloud the following week, the room wept with her, and Jace, who had once unlocked her silence, was waiting outside when she stepped off the stage. Your story, he said, isn't over, but now it's finally yours. The video of Lila's second poem exploded. Mainstream media picked it up. It was quoted on The Today Show, shared by celebrities, debated on talk shows. One panelist asked, should parents be allowed to monetize their kids at all? Another answered, she was famous. She had opportunities most children dream of. Lila sat on her dorm bed, scrolling through it all, the screen casting a cold glow on her face. She whispered, I didn't dream of any of it. 3 days later, she received an email with the subject line, I used to be your best friend. She clicked it. Hey Lila, you might not remember me, but we were in kindergarten together before you left school to be homeschooled. My name's Rachel. I used to braid your hair at recess. We'd play pretend and call each other princesses. I remember you cried the day you stopped coming. I always wondered what happened to you. I just watched your video. You were always the kindest girl I knew. Just wanted to say, I'm sorry we lost touch. I hope you're okay. Rachel B. Lila's heart cracked. She remembered the name and the purple beads in her hair. She replied, Rachel lived just 2 hours away. They met at a bookstore cafe in Cincinnati, halfway between their campuses. When Rachel walked in, Lila stood still, frozen in a memory she hadn't touched in over a decade. But Rachel just opened her arms, and Lila fell into them like a child again. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Lila admitted she didn't even know how to hold friendships. Rachel said, we'll figure it out. And in that moment, Lila realized she didn't need millions of followers, just one friend who saw the girl, not the brand. But not everyone felt that way. Some brands reached out with new offers. Raw honesty is trending, one executive wrote. They wanted to sponsor a documentary, a clothing line, even a perfume. Reclamation by Lila. She deleted every email. Tina showed up at her dorm 2 weeks later, unannounced. Lila opened the door to see her mother standing there in a blazer, holding a coffee cup with her face on it. I thought we could talk, Tina said. Lila stepped outside, but didn't invite her in. You've been twisting things, Tina began. I gave you everything, sacrificed so much. Lila looked her in the eye. You sold my childhood. I gave you a platform. You took my voice. A long silence. "I loved you," Tina whispered. "You loved the version of me that made you money." Tina blinked. For the first time, there were no cameras, no backup plan, no social media manager to fix the fallout. And Lila said something she'd rehearsed 1,000 times. "I forgive you, but I'm not coming back." She turned and walked away, and this time, no one filmed it. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She sat in the glow of her laptop screen, scrolling through her old public profiles. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Her whole childhood was still online, frozen in time like museum exhibits. She found videos with millions of views. Her first tooth falling out. Her third-grade interview where she answered pre-written questions. A bath time blooper reel, overlaid with cartoon bubbles and giggles. All posted without consent, all still monetized. And in the comment sections, people still wrote, "I remember watching her when I was 10. Time flies. She was my childhood." So sad she turned on her parents. They made her. Each comment felt like a scalpel, slicing her spirit open. She went to bed with a question that kept clawing at her. If your entire life is online, do you ever truly belong to yourself? The next day, she made a choice. She filed a digital privacy motion through her professor's legal contact, requesting takedown of her childhood content based on new state child labor laws surrounding online monetization. She knew it would be an uphill battle. The law was still gray in places. Her parents would resist, but she pressed submit because she had to try. Meanwhile, her poems were being shared in high school classrooms. Mental health advocates reached out to feature her work. A major non-profit invited her to speak at a summit on ethics in youth media. Jace came with her. He held her hand before she took the stage. She was shaking. "You don't have to be perfect," he whispered. "Just be honest." And she was. She told her story, not with blame, not with theatrics, but with truth. She ended her speech with these words: "My parents raised a star, but I grew up in the dark, and now I'm learning how to light my own way." The audience stood, and this time, the applause didn't feel like a demand. It felt like release. Later that night, she and Jace walked the quiet campus paths. He looked at her and said, "Do you think you'll ever go back? To content creation, I mean." She smiled gently. "Not for them, but maybe for the girl I used to be. She deserves to speak." He nodded. "You're doing that now." They sat under the statue in the quad, wrapped in the hush of spring wind. And for the first time, Lila didn't feel like a product. She felt like a person. Spring melted into summer. Lila stayed on campus to work on a research project. Digital childhood and the cost of exposure. She combined her poetry with data, stories with statistics. Her advisor called it revolutionary. But Lila wasn't chasing accolades. She was trying to understand the ache that had lived inside her for years. One evening, as she was cleaning her closet, she found a box she hadn't opened since moving in. Inside were remnants of her old life, a pink ribbon with "Stay Sweet and Silly" printed on it, a cracked iPhone with a faded cat-shaped case, a printed snapshot from her 8th birthday, the one with the fake cake. She stared at the photo, her smile so big, so bright, but now she saw the truth behind it, the forced arch of her cheeks, the tension in her hands. The mirror had lied for years, and she believed it. She placed the photo down and whispered to herself, "I'm allowed to be real now." In July, she received a package, no sender listed. Inside was a thick envelope, labeled in neat handwriting, "For you, only you." She opened it. Dozens of printed screenshots, her mother's old spreadsheets, sponsorship contracts, brand emails discussing her marketability, daily mood fluctuations, and posting value. Attached was a handwritten note. "Mark found these and sent them to me before he left your mum. I couldn't just keep them. I don't know if they help, but I thought, maybe this is your proof. I'm sorry. Rachel." Lila stared at the documents in stunned silence. Proof. That's what she'd needed for the digital privacy case. Her story, her pain. It wasn't just emotional. It was exploited, monetized, archived. She didn't cry. She scanned every page and sent them to her attorney. Weeks passed. In late August, she received an email. "The court has ruled in favor of your motion. All digital content created of you as a minor will be removed and demonetized under the revised Youth Creator Protection Act." She sat in silence, staring at the screen. Then she exhaled. It was done. She had reclaimed herself. To mark the day, she wrote one final poem. This time, not for stages, not for followers, not even for Jace. She wrote it for the little girl in the old videos, the one who had smiled even when she didn't want to. "You were soft, and they asked you to be steel. You were kind, and they asked you to sell it. But now, dear child, you are free, you are unseen, and in that, you are whole." By the fall of 2024, Lila had become something she never expected. Famous for walking away. Her name wasn't on merchandise. Her face wasn't on lunchboxes. She had no manager, no assistant, no brand deals. But students lined up outside her campus office hours. They weren't fans, they were listeners. Some had been teen vloggers. Some had posted dance routines at 5 years old. Some were the kids of influencer families finally finding the courage to speak. They called her a pioneer. She shook her head and said, "I'm just trying to heal." She gave one major interview, just one. It aired on a nationally televised youth advocacy forum. The host asked her, "If you could go back and speak to 8-year-old Lila, what would you say?" She paused. then said softly, "You don't have to smile when you're sad. You're not here to entertain. You are not content. You are a person, and you are allowed to be messy, loud, tired, and quiet, without asking for permission." The host, teary-eyed, replied, "I think a lot of girls needed to hear that." Jace graduated that winter and got accepted into a writing residency in Vermont. He asked Lila to visit in the spring. They weren't officially dating, but their connection had become something sacred, rooted not in romance, but understanding, the kind of bond no camera could capture. One weekend in February 2025, Lila stood on the roof of her apartment complex in Columbus. Snow blanketed the horizon. She looked out over the city lights and thought, "This is what peace feels like. Not silence, not hiding, but peace." She pulled out her phone and opened her Notes app. She hadn't posted on social media in nearly a year, but this time she typed something different. "I was raised to be seen, but now I'm learning to see." She hit post, closed the app, and went to bed, smiling. Spring 2025 arrived with a softness Lila had never known before. She was no longer trending, no longer being called by interviewers or agents. And for the first time in her life, that felt like a gift, not a punishment. She woke up to birdsong, not notifications. She dressed for herself, not a lens. She walked across campus without whispers trailing behind her. She was ordinary, and in that ordinariness, she bloomed. Her senior project, a poetic research collection titled Unfiltered: Childhood in the Age of Screens, won the university's award for outstanding undergraduate work in social impact. She didn't walk the stage in heels. She wore sneakers and a thrifted jacket. In her speech, she said, "This project is not just about me. It's about the children who were told they were lucky to be famous, but who really just wanted to be held. It's for the ones who smile on camera and cry when no one's watching." The room stood in silence, then rose in applause. After graduation, Lila turned down several job offers. Instead, she accepted a small grant to help design digital consent curriculum for middle schools. She wanted to teach kids to think critically about the camera before it starts thinking for them. She also began work on a poetry collection. The working title? For the Girl Who Didn't Know She Was Enough. She never promoted it, but word spread anyway, not through hashtags, but through whispers in libraries, in conversations between mums and daughters, in classrooms and coffee shops. One Sunday morning in April, she got a message from a 10-year-old girl named Emily. "Hi, Lila. My mom showed me your poems. I told her I don't want to be on TikTok anymore. I want to be a kid. Thank you for helping me say that. Love, Emily." Lila sat at her desk and stared at the screen. Then she placed a hand over her heart, not for applause, not for pride, but for peace. And that, dear listener, is where Lila's story ends and begins. A life once borrowed by the world, now returned to the girl it belonged to. The lessons we take with us. Childhood is sacred. It is not content. Not all fame is a blessing. Sometimes it's a burden. Real love protects, listens, and preserves innocence. Silence can be louder than applause, and peace more powerful than fame. Healing is slow, but it begins when we claim our voice. Thank you for sitting with us by the fireside tonight. If this story touched something in you, if it made you think, reflect, or even cry, you're not alone. You're part of this little circle now, and we're grateful you're here. If the story touched your heart, share it to the ones you love. And if you would like to listen to more like it, you know where to find us.